Our next reader is an all-American boy. His favorite thing about America is the rivers and the water, both culturally and geographically. Think about it. And his least favorite thing about America, Trump. Please welcome third-year fiction writer Matthew Kollmer.
Hey, everybody. Can you hear me? This is a short story I started in New York a couple weeks ago and finished earlier today. So, it's called The Mermaid Who Rose from the South Point Lighthouse. She came by way of Montauk down the NY-27 in a rusted shuttle van with two others, Archie and Nick, fellow runaways. They'd paid twice the price as she because she was pretty, for one, and for two, their chauffeur, Jace, the chef at the Pancake House, owed her something awful. She'd covered for him when the kitchen fire had started, back when she waited tables, and it cost her the job. So Jace said she only had to pay $10 for gas, and she thought it was a deal. They listened to the radio, and she sang, even though it was so early, and it didn't matter what song. The night still cloaked each small town on the way, the little clapboard houses, and she stared some as she was prone to do and felt nothing but excitement, a flutter in her blood. The tapping of her knuckles on the window, laughing and agreeing while Archie and Nick, he said, "Hey, it's a bit of this, it's a bit of that, and you'll get a part in no time, bub." They were actors, or at least they'd performed once at the Nativity at St. Therese. And they were going to New York City to catch their big break. So was Ariel, but she could sing. She could sing so well the waters rippled on Fort Pond, where she'd been raised, and her skin was so pale, and her hair was so red, she and all the rest of Montauk knew she'd get a record deal. Except her father, Marty. He kept a tight ship at Muck's Harbor, sat all day pumping gas and guiding the sailboats in. He yelled a lot at the boys who worked for him. He kept Ariel at home most nights when he could, but she was 18 now, and she wanted to know if she was a big fish, like everyone said. "Hey, look at this," Nick joked, pointing to the houses across the bay, the mansions, practicing his thickest accent. "That sounds like Brooklyn," Archie said. "You can't hold the S so long. Boston's all about the vowels, the ahs and the O's." "Like ha-ba-ba," Jace added from the front seat. "I'll meet you down at the ha-ba-ba." Archie laughed. "That's it," he said. "You got it." It took them until noon to get to Queens, heading west with the sun rising at the van's back, and it felt like its own eternity, that drive. And they were all so happy. And the excitement lasted even when they couldn't find a place to stay for 2 whole nights and had to bundle together in Central Park, eating cold deli bagels with cream cheese, laughing at their impressions. They were practicing constantly those first weeks, Archie and Nick. Everything they said and did was a joke and an act. Ariel chimed in too sometimes, but mostly she saved her voice, breathed air like it was honey, and avoided clouds of gutter steam. The first place they found a crash was at the apartment of an old friend of Nick's named Jericho Palm. He was a musician and a waiter, and his apartment was a sty. They had to share the office room, a cubby space full of Jericho's instruments, a few guitars and some drums. It was 3 weeks they were there, getting stoned most nights, talking crazy and making more and more plans. Archie went to the library, wrote down a list of places he could audition, and shared it with Nick, but didn't actually visit any of the casting offices that whole time. Ariel spent a few evenings with Jericho, who worked late but came back to the apartment with food from the restaurant where he worked, and they ate it together, smoking weed and giggling. Then one night he leaned in and kissed her. And they ate it, and he kissed her, his tattooed hands holding her chin. Archie and Nick could probably hear through the walls that night. Who knew what they thought, but it was only one night because Ariel woke up the next day and felt nothing but amusement and not an ounce of love. The next time Jericho tried to kiss her, she pulled away, and she tried to explain it to him, but a hard cavern formed at his brow and in his voice. He pretended to feel okay. "Let's sing," Jericho said. "Sing for me, lovely." He played the guitar and she sang her best, a sonorous, vibrant best that made all their hearts break, especially Jericho's, and for the rest of the days that followed, he started to drink. He cracked his knuckles, secluded himself to his own room, strummed his guitar quietly late in the night. Eventually, he emerged and said they'd have to start paying rent, and only two of them could stay. So before Archie or Nick went for an audition, they looked for jobs, and by the end of the first month, they were both working at Shake Shack, coming home greasily and pimply, tired and bored. They stopped joking around so much. Archie's list got lost in the dirty laundry on the floor of Jericho's apartment. Jericho cracked his knuckles. "We can't all stay," he muttered. "I want my office cleaned up. I'm having some people over, and they'll want to play." And that night, the last night Ariel stayed there, it was Jericho's little party. Some 10 people came by, all drunk or big-pupiled from ecstasy. Mostly men, a few girls, and Ariel stood quietly, tired and wanting to sleep, but they were all shuffling on the floor where her sleeping bag would lay. They tried to talk to her, the punk guys in torn denim and bleached hair. Archie drank too much and ended up in the bathtub, Nick making him sip water, and Ariel wanted to cry. She kept sinking further into the corner of the room, holding her plastic cup of lemon vodka, getting more flushed and upset, and just when she felt the sudden urge to run, a stranger appeared, breaking away from the group he had come in with. He had black, bushy eyebrows, a hunched posture, and his hands in his pockets. The wire from his MP3 player, an ancient model, winding up his hoodie to his big black headphones, which Ariel never saw him once without as the weeks went on. "I'm Cape," he said. "Gotta ask about a drink." His voice was rhythmic, calm, and there was a slight hint to an imperfect rhyme to it, but he didn't seem to notice. Ariel pointed to the kitchen. "Ask Jericho," she said. "He has some vodka." Cape tilted his head back and laughed. "Jer's always got it, vodka, chronic." "Did you just call it chronic?" Ariel asked. Cape laughed. "Yeah, sorry, been stuck on Dre all day," he said. She folded her arms, swigged from her drink. "You seem like you need a minute," Cape said. "Here, take my headphones. Cold out on the porch while I check the fridge." He took them off, reached them out to her. She received them apprehensively. "Thanks," she said. He winked, scrolled through to pick a song, pressed play, and waved like a child on the playground before turning to the kitchen. She put the soft earpieces to her head, and the song right away was so right, so sad that she began to cry. She gently wiped her tears, staring as she was prone to do as partygoers were loud and didn't notice. When Cape returned holding a beer, he said, "Hey, whoa, now take it easy." He patted her back. "I get the hint. You need out of here quick." She managed to nod, and they went out for a smoke, but soon decided to ditch, and they walked that night for hours along the streets in Queens. Cape talked about how he'd grown up in the city, lived by the city's rules, and only liked people who were in the city for good, and he assured her she'd make it after she told him about how she had just arrived. It was what she needed to hear. She was quiet and kept her arms together all night, hugging herself, but she could tell Cape was trying to cheer her up, and it worked a little on the inside. They never went back to the party, instead going to his studio, and he said, "You can have the bed. I'll rest up on the love seat, but just so you know, I've got a cat, Muggsy." Ariel smiled. "Okay," she sang. She stayed there for a time, day in and day out, waking in Cape's bed, going for walks, humming, while he left for the UPS shipping office and taped and rerouted boxes on the assembly line. In the evenings, they'd get stoned and climb to the roof of the building, catch the skyline in the distance. He encouraged her each night to head into the city for auditions. "I don't know where to start," she admitted, "and I need some money, too. I'm running out." "Best get a job," Cape said, "to hold you over. There's no guessing how long it'll take to catch a break in the city these days." He went ahead and brought her application to a few places one morning on his way to work, and in time she was waiting tables at Kellogg's Diner, bringing people cheesecakes and coffees. She got herself black pants and an apron. The manager, Maggie Perez, didn't like her because Maggie wanted to be young again, and Ariel didn't say much, so Maggie thought she was slow. Plus, Ariel hadn't been eating much, so she was always trying to sneak food from the kitchen, and eventually Maggie caught her reaching into the sandwich meats and slapped her hand. "Get your shit together," Maggie said, then called Ariel a mute, a child, a wreck waiting to happen. Ariel tried not to worry. She kept her head down, saved her money, her voice. Cape let her stay for free, but she made him take the bed back and bought herself a cot for the floor. They talked about their dreams most of the time, Cape admitting he assured her he never told anyone that he wanted to be a music producer. She told him about how she'd always sang and always imagined singing old songs by Billie Holiday and Dolly Parton and new ones by Adele. She described her urge to sing on the streets whenever there were many people walking around. She liked the way it was when she finished singing, how everyone was quiet. She preferred to sing without a band or instruments, ideally just a podium to stand behind, like how she used to sing the gospel songs at St. Therese. She said she was worried that one day her voice might be gone, like she would wake up and it would be broken, or if she sang at the wrong time, it would float away. That's all crazy, Cape said. If you want it that much, we should get off our butts, stop being lazy. There's someone out there waiting to hear your voice, he said. Let's get you an audition. Tomorrow we'll go. Someone ought to listen. So they rose early, took the subway to Manhattan, went to the library, and looked for information about open auditions on the public computers. Cape read the descriptions off the screen, saying things like, you could do this one, or that one would be fun, or hey, hold on a minute, there's a casting for a short film, and they need someone who can sing some. Ariel jotted the numbers and addresses down on a sheet of paper, smiling, humming, holding her throat, her voice wanting to vibrate out into the high ceilings and through the bookshelves. She felt the flutter in her blood again. It already felt like she was close. Stop there.